Darkness fell over Valley Center, Kansas on a cold November evening in 2003. The quiet suburban neighborhood held no warning of the horror about to unfold. Young Chris Bluml, just 16 years old, stepped into his family's driveway at 9:17 p.m. and discovered a scene that would haunt him forever. Police initially suspected a robbery turned violent, but the truth would prove to be far more sinister. This is Monsters. Roger and Melissa Bluml yearned for children but couldn't conceive. They lived a comfortable life in Valley Center, Kansas. Roger owned his own business selling construction equipment, and Melissa was vice president of Chisholm Trail State Bank. Their dream of parenthood came true in 2001. They welcomed brothers 4-year-old Chris and 6-year-old Anthony, who went by Tony, into their home. Life had dealt the young boys harsh blows. Nights without shelter, a mother on drugs, brutal physical abuse from their mother's boyfriends, and constant uncertainty. The Bluml household offered sanctuary, structure, and love. Gratitude radiated from the boys during their first meeting with the Blumls. Their eyes lit up at the simple promise of regular meals, a luxury their turbulent past had denied them. Years passed peacefully as Tony and Chris embraced their new family's routines and boundaries. Both brothers flourished in this newfound stability, becoming accomplished athletes in wrestling and football. Everything seemed to change, though, during Tony's senior year of high school. New friends drew him toward trouble, while violence crept into his personality. Screaming matches erupted between Tony and his adoptive parents, shattering their once peaceful home. In the summer of 2013, police caught 18-year-old Tony with marijuana, launching a spiral of legal troubles. June brought assault charges, and July added a DUI to his growing record. Rage finally exploded when Tony's fist crashed through the family home's wall. The Blumls had no choice but eviction. Bitterness consumed Tony after leaving home. He seethed watching his brother Chris receive what he called anything he wanted. Life became a desperate juggle. 2 jobs, couch surfing, and dealing marijuana to survive. His complaints about the Bluml's strict rules masked deeper wounds as he railed against boundaries that had once given him structure. In 2012, Tony and Chris's birth mother Kisha Schaberg began reaching out to each of them on Facebook. It was around that time that she had moved to San Diego. At first, the interactions remained casual, with Chris occasionally responding with brief greetings. As Tony approached his 18th birthday, the communications intensified, expanding from Facebook messages to phone conversations. Throughout those exchanges, Tony shared his aspirations of joining the Air Force and discussed his daily life. The virtual relationship transformed into a physical reunion after Tony's eviction from the Bluml residence. Accompanied by his friend Braden Smith, Tony traveled to San Diego in mid-September of 2013. The pair moved into Kisha's 1-bedroom apartment, which she shared with her partner Hamilton. Despite Hamilton's offers to help them secure employment, the situation quickly deteriorated. Throughout their stay in California, the trio spent considerable time under the influence of drugs. Tony frequently expressed his grievances about the Blumls to Kisha, focusing on his resentment over being forced to leave their home. Kisha, meanwhile, harbored her own frustrations, particularly regarding her younger son Chris's reluctance to form a closer relationship with her. The reunion created tension within Kisha's household. Her relationship with Hamilton showed signs of strain while her relationship with Tony continued to grow. Earlier that year, Kisha had posted a photo on social media featuring herself and Tony, captioned, quote, "Bond that can't be broken." To the world, it seemed like an innocent reconnection between a mother and her son. People didn't realize how they would each feed off each other to develop a plan to kill. Fueled by resentment and greed, a sinister plot emerged between Tony and Kisha in November of 2013. The duo devised a scheme to murder Roger and Melissa, motivated by the prospect of inheritance and insurance money to fund a drug operation. Kisha skillfully manipulated Tony's growing bitterness toward his adoptive parents. She expressed anger about being kept away from her sons, claiming the Blumls were, quote, probably feeding Chris bad things about her. It turned out that Kisha had requested an open adoption, but it was rejected by the Blumls. Seems like they made the right choice. She had also contacted the Blumls years earlier and asked if she could see the boys, and they declined. She seemed to hold a great deal of bitterness over that, despite the situation being caused by her own actions. She also admitted to previously driving by the Blumls' residence with thoughts of shooting them, ultimately backing away due to fear. The conspiracy expanded as Tony recruited his friend Braden Smith, seeking assistance with transportation and weapons. Braden, although initially agreeing to help, later withdrew from direct involvement. Instead, he recommended his friend Andrew Ellington, who went by Drew, as the driver. Braden's role shifted to procuring the murder weapons, two .25 caliber pistols. The murderous scheme was meticulously planned over 2 weeks from their hotel base back in Kansas. Tony selected November 15, 2013 as the execution date, strategically choosing when his brother Chris would be away at a wrestling meet. The plan involved 3 key components. Tony would distract his parents by taking them to dinner. Kisha and Drew would break into the house through the garage door. Then the perpetrators would stage a burglary by stealing valuables and emergency cash. That would make it look like a robbery that had gone bad. On the night of the murder, Tony executed the first phase of their plan by taking his adoptive parents out for dinner. Surveillance footage confirmed Tony was the last person to see Roger and Melissa alive, showing them dropping him off at his hotel afterward. Simultaneously, Kisha and Drew broke into the Bluml residence, searched through their dresser drawers, and removed small items to stage a robbery. Upon receiving Tony's text message confirming his parents were on their way home, Kisha and Drew positioned themselves behind the house in the shadows. As the Blumls' Ford F-150 pulled into their driveway, the assailants emerged from hiding. Kisha approached the passenger side while Drew walked up to the driver. In a chilling moment, Melissa recognized her son's biological mother, uttering, quote, "Oh my gosh, Kisha," before the woman shot her in the head. Drew was supposed to shoot Roger, but he hesitated, so Kisha turned her .25 caliber pistol toward him and attempted to shoot. The weapon initially jammed, forcing her to pull the trigger several times before successfully firing the fatal shot. Both victims sustained gunshot wounds to the right side of their heads, fired from the passenger side of their vehicle. At approximately 9 p.m., Chris returned home from his wrestling meet to discover the horrific scene. He called 911 and authorities raced to the house where they found the couple barely clinging to life in their truck. Melissa, age 53, succumbed to her injuries the following day, but Roger, 48, fought for his life for 5 weeks. During that time, Tony visited him in the hospital, and though Roger was in a coma, he learned from someone that he had been removed from both his adoptive parents' will and life insurance policies. Even if he got away with the crime, he would receive nothing, which might have put his brother in the crosshairs of the greedy duo. Fortunately, investigators were able to piece together the series of events pretty quickly. Of course, they looked into Chris first, him having been at the scene, but they were able to confirm that he was at a wrestling meet during the time of the shooting. When detectives asked him who he thought could have attacked his parents, he immediately suggested Tony. Despite there being signs of a burglary in the home, detectives didn't think it was a random attack. After hearing about the ongoing issues that the Blumls were having with Tony, they tracked him down to his hotel and questioned him. He denied any involvement and told them that he had been dropped off at the hotel after they finished dinner. Surveillance footage and hotel staff confirmed that was true. Soon, though, a man came forward and told the police that Braden Smith had tried to buy a gun from him and that he believed he was involved in the murders. When Braden was questioned, he confessed that he, Tony, and Kisha had developed the plan together and that they had brought on Andrew Ellington to help carry it out. Drew was picked up and he also immediately confessed, though he insisted that it was only Kisha who had fired at the Blumls. That was backed up by the evidence at the scene. He also took investigators to the location where he had dumped the guns and Melissa's purse. At that point, authorities arrested the 4 people involved in the murders, and at that time they were all charged with the first-degree murder of Melissa Bluml and the attempted murder of Roger Bluml. When both Tony and Kisha were interrogated, Tony confessed, but Kisha remained adamant that she was not involved. When they took her into the interrogation room where Tony sat crying, he told her that he had confessed everything. She continued to play dumb and claimed that she had no idea what her biological son was saying. Even then, with his birth mother throwing him under the bus, Tony apologized profusely to her about what had happened and asked her if she still loved him. Tony's willingness to do whatever it took to be loved by Kisha was clearly the driving force in his actions, and she used that to her advantage every step of the way. On December 21, 2013, Roger died in the hospital and all of the attempted murder charges were changed to a second count of first-degree murder. That development meant that the accused would be eligible for the death penalty. Due to that, though Kisha Schaberg wouldn't admit to any involvement in the shooting, she pleaded no contest and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Anthony Bluml also pleaded no contest and was given the same sentence. Andrew Ellington pleaded no contest to 1 count of first-degree murder and 1 count of second-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison with parole after 25 years. Braden Smith pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 24.5 years in prison. When it was all over, Chris Bluml had lost everything. His adoptive parents were dead and his brother and birth mother were in prison. He told reporters that he would not have any communication with either of them, saying Tony was no longer his brother. Tony had longed for a deeper connection to family and was willing to do anything to get it, even turn into a monster. Now he will never see his biological mother or his brother ever again. If you're a fan of true crime, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss an episode. You can also hit like or leave us a comment. You can check out our other show, Somewhere Sinister, on YouTube or anywhere that you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to support the show, check out our merchandise at thisismonsters.com. The link is in the description. Thanks again, and be safe.